podcast. My name is Shubhankar Mishra, and this is my excuse to meet fascinating people and learn how they approach work, creativity, and problem solving. My guest today is passionate about creating innovative solutions that leverage data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and satellite imagery to address complex challenges across various sectors. As a senior product manager at SatSure, a deep tech decision intelligence company, she develops geospatial products that help major companies optimize their operations, reduce risks, and enhance performance. She holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, astronautics, and space technology from Kingston University, and a master's degree by research in space systems engineering from the University of Glasgow. She has also enhanced her expertise through an award winning online certification program by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Since joining SatSure in September 2021, she has successfully led the development of cutting edge satellite imagery analysis tools and contributed to the launch of scalable, sustainable solutions that address global challenges. Previously, she worked as a senior systems engineer at Asteria Aerospace, where she led the operations and development of an unmanned aerial vehicle mapping program, collaborating with a team of GIS analysts. Before that, she was a lead design engineer at Aston Engineering and also served as a teaching assistant at the University of Glasgow. This morning, however, this genius aerospace engineer has unfortunately crash landed on my silly little podcast. I intend to dig into her brains on her approach to complex systems, innovations, and research. To see her incredible work at SatSure, visit satsure.co and you can connect with her on LinkedIn. And now, please enjoy my conversation with Alisha Contractor. Alisha, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
So, Alisha, it's like I said earlier, it's an honor and privilege to be talking to you right now. One second. Yeah, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor that I'm talking to you right now. But we are having this conversation in the wake of the LA fires that happened
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
and you have written uh, about this topic maybe a year ago. And although
Yeah.
these fires are not something that were unpredictable, I mean, people have written about these fires dating back to the early 90s. Environmentalists have warned about this. But your work in the tech industry, in the astronautics industry, it's more relevant than ever before because of these things. I mean, can you just reflect a little bit on what is happening and where do you feel the industry is at the moment where it can help in this situation?
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people who would be your listener or the audience, they would know about what exactly is happening at LA. You had in the start of January, there was the wildfire started, and in matter of 24 hours, it picked up. It sort of just spread across the whole city, and there was some billion-dollar damages, etc. Um, the I mean, we can approach it this way: like there are reasons why this has happened, and it could have been predicted well in advance. Um, the mitigation plan could have also been worked out, as well as why it is happening. And both the problems is currently solved by the technology that we already have, right? We One of the major issues in US, we've seen that they have aging assets. Most of their assets are quite aging at this point, and because of multiple reasons, to just renew or make the assets more better, they have it is a sort of a challenge, because unlike India, where the prices of your electricity is very well defined and planned for at least 20 years in advance, in US, that's not the structure of how energy trading happens. The unit price of your electricity is actually defined by the asset owners. So now think about it this way: the high or the capital intensive asset that you sort of lay out, eventually the price boils down to the consumer or people who are using it, right? So there are a little bit of challenges there, which is why there is a little
When you're talking about the asset, you mean the grid, right? The
the
actual,
grid.
yeah,
The grid, the electric poles, your conductors, all of that, right?
which are
Um,
archaic. They were built in the 80s, I think, in
yes,
America. Yeah.
yes. It was quite a shocker for me as well. I was not aware of it. I had actually gone for a conference last to last year, which is where I came to know about this actual problem, which
Hmm.
not many know about, right?
Hmm.
So, however, this particular, renewing the whole asset itself, it's a massive challenge, and the asset owners are working towards it, but not at a full length, right?
Okay.
Now, what happens is that you have your aging assets or aging components on the electric poles or conductors, etc. You could have, for whatever n number of reasons, some sparks, and if you have any vegetation which is quite closer to such, faulty lines, it could just trigger
Yeah.
your fire, right? And this typically happens in the dry season where the trees, which are the fuel, they are quite
Prone
in
to
the right
catching fire.
condition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it is a mix of all of this that does lead to wildfire. And even in past, there have been cases where, because of such faulty lines, the wildfire has started in the state of California, and a massive damage has also occurred, right? Now for LA, still I think I've been tracking the cause of wildfire. There are a
Hmm.
lot of speculation as to why the wildfire had started. There were a lot of multiple reasons why it could have started, right?
Yeah.
Like you could have some sort of campers who might have just kept the fire on. It could have been the faulty lines, or maybe it could have been some arsons where someone might have just lit up for,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever reasons, right? And also, of course, the weather, which
Just
is
the
your
natural.
lightning.
There's wind blowing in
Absolutely.
the direction.
Yeah, I mean, wind just becomes your catalyst here at this
Yeah.
point. Wind and dry
Hmm.
trees, right?
Hmm.
But the cause of the ignition are only sort of this three or four, I
Yeah.
would say,
Hmm.
suspects.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, using, let's just say, that has been the reasons of why or how the wildfires might have started in LA. Now, predicting and working towards, safeguarding the assets, when I say the city itself, it could have been certainly better planned, right?
Hmm.
You do have a very specific seasons where the wildfire actually starts in US and in Australia. I think last year we saw wildfire in Canada. I think it was Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it is like people do know that it is coming, and yet it's not well planned, which is little bothersome that you do have all the access to all the technology at your hand, and yet we do end up suffering, right?
Yeah.
So
Of course, I mean, this is a very tragic topic to talk about. But do you think that those what do you call it, the those constellation satellites,
yeah.
uh, could they be of use, because they would give a very real time feedback in these situations? I mean, I don't know. I don't know from whatever
No,
I know.
You are absolutely correct. So you do have a fleet of satellites, or we typically call them as constellation of satellites. So you do have those fleets which are monitoring on a regular basis the region of concern. So you do have live updates which are being provided
Yeah.
on a timely basis as to where all the fire is expanding, where
Hmm.
all you can actually predict where it could go.
Hmm.
Now, there are two things, right? Like before any particular incident happen, you sort of already have the information prior, where you can then sort of, create a safeguard solution, so to
Yeah.
say. And then the other way, the other thing there is that you also sort of work out as to where all the fire is spreading, getting the live updates so that you
Hmm.
exactly know which particular region to sort of
Go
work it
to.
out, go
Yeah.
to, right? Because at this point, one thing that majorly gets affected is your communication. You are completely sort of stranded without any communication
Yeah.
with the outside sort of world because all your communication would be down.
Yeah.
So, if you exactly know remotely as to what all places are affected, you can straight away provide the services there
Yeah.
and send the help, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for both these sort of use cases, you do have satellites which can be used, which has been used currently for the first responders there
Okay.
wherein the live updates are provided. And a lot of institutes have actually made it open source for people to check it live as
You're talking
to
about Planet Labs.
Planet Labs, you also have Google. So,
Okay.
as simple as if you go on Google Map, if you check out some of these affected region, they exactly show you where all the fires are live.
Oh.
They also show you that which region are affected. There are multiple sources wherein this particular data is provided as a free or open
Hmm.
source
Hmm.
for people to actually go and access it and sort of use that for first responders.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay. All right. I think we should move on.
yeah.
You are an aerospace engineer.
hmm
How do you spend most of your day?
Huh, very interesting question. I don't think it is much different than any other normal person, or even in that matter of fact, anyone. It's uh, it's typical. It's a very typical day. You start your day. You sort of spend some time on yourself. You go for workouts. Go back to your jobs. Do the chores. Come back. Read. Meet. Sort of friends and chit chat. Watch some movies.
What are you
It
working
is.
as?
It is typically from 10 to 7:30.
Okay. And what are your
Yeah.
productivity hours? How much of that time you're actually working and how much time are you pretending?
I think my boss shouldn't know about it then.
Okay, okay. So how much
Let's
time
just
are
say,
you really focusing on your work? But
no, no.
honestly, but like in terms of
Jokes,
productivity hours,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like jokes apart, productivity hours, I mean, it sort of, to be very honest, it varies from, I think, day to day. It depends on how intense the day is. It certainly ranges from about 7 to 8 hours in a very intense day, as compared to there are days when I'm just not productive and it would also vary to 5 hours. And when I exactly know that at the start of the day that, well, I'm not feeling right, I genuinely do take off instead of, sort of pretending to work because it just doesn't do anyone any good, right?
so you take off as in you just leave.
No, as in like I'll call in sick or I'll
Okay.
let my manager know that, hey, I'm not feeling well. And those are the days when I'm genuinely not feeling well, wherein I'm not able to concentrate. I know that I'll not be able to put or, contribute to anything for the day.
Mhm.
So, which are very rare. But then there are one
For
of
the
those
record.
days
Yeah,
for the record.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but okay, so on days that you are feeling productive, on
Yeah.
days that you are at your best, what are you
Yes.
doing on those days? How are you spending your time?
So it would genuinely vary because you'll have, as a product manager, you have to also interact with the clients, you also have to interact with the tech team,
Okay, okay.
and then you also have your IC work that also
What is
has to be
IC?
done, individual contribution. So,
Okay.
which means that I'm not just managing the teams, I'm just sort of having a task which just needs to be, done or solved by me.
Just you.
Just me, yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, like I said, it completely varies, but every day, like all the 3 years that I've been working in this company, 3 to 4 years now, I don't think there has ever been like any day where the work is very monotonous. Every day there is a new challenge which comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Every day you are trying to solve for a different problem
Mm-hmm.
that comes by your way.
Mm-hmm.
It is every day it has been always challenging in this company as well as in the previous company.
Mm-hmm. Uh, okay, so since we're talking about dealing with challenges, could you explain what is systems thinking?
Systems thinking, I would put it this way, it is the first principle way to solve a problem, right?
Okay.
Like you sort of any problem, and this actually even applies not just at your workplace, but it also applies in your personal life. You
Mm-hmm.
sort of break it down.
Okay.
That's what the first principle talks about, right? Like you break down a bigger chunk of problem to something in a smaller chunks and work out what is addressable
Hmm.
and if it is addressable, how much needle are you moving into sort of solving the whole larger
Okay.
problem. Yeah.
So is it like deal with whatever you can deal with immediately?
In a way, yes. And also breaking a bigger sort of a problem into a smaller chunks because every time any bigger problem that you end up having,
Mm-hmm.
those always can be sort of broken down in chunks. I mean, that is what I've like we apply in the current company as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever sort of problems that has come up so far, or any new challenges, or any new sort of requirement from the client, we tend to sort of break it down that, for example, sorry, I'm circling back to the wildfire thing. That
Yes.
okay, the problem here is that hey, how can I sort of predict the wildfire?
Hmm.
Now you sort of break it down that what are the causes of wildfire? So now the wildfire causes could be the it can be again segregated into two things: the catalyst
Yes.
and the catalyst of fuel and the
The
reason for
ignition.
ignition,
Yeah.
right? So now you then break it down that what are the causes of ignition, right? So the causes of ignition would be, let's just say, lightning. It could be a faulty electric line
Hmm.
where the vegetation is quite close by. It could
Hmm.
be some campers who must have, sort of left the ignition on. Now, those issues, for example, thunder can still be predicted in a way that you still sort of follow the weather pattern, but not in a very accurate way that you can identify that where the lightning is going
Where
to
it will
strike.
exactly land. Yeah.
Correct. So that is one issue. So it is sort of solvable, but not completely,
Hmm.
right? Then you have the issues of vegetation, which are very close to utility lines, which
Hmm.
could sort of spark, right? Now, this issue I can certainly solve because from satellite or from any other remote sensing, sensor, I can identify where all my transmission lines are going, where all the vegetation is in the proximity. So now this particular problem I can easily solve, right? Now the third problem is on the campers. A human behavior, it's again very unpredictable. I cannot solve that. However, I can solve the sites of camping,
Hmm.
right? Like I do know that where all are those camping sites.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have, I would say, a partial information here, about 70% information on the ignition side. Now, if I have to deal on the fuel side, I can solve for that. I can solve for, let's just say, in what all areas you have dry trees, or in which season would I have dry trees, because those are the major reasons for your as a fuel, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm able to sort of break a larger problem into a smaller chunks and then again another smaller chunks, I exactly know that what all things I can solve for. Now, if I'm
But
able to,
yeah, no, please continue.
no, it's okay. Go on.
No, I was saying that from whatever I'm gathering from you, it looks like a lot of those solutions will require a historical analysis or a time series analysis for you to accurately say, okay, these are the common camping grounds, or these are the common places where dry leaves are usually found. So you're dealing with a lot of data sets, right?
Yes and no. If I have to identify the condition of, let's just say, dry leaves, or what is the moisture content of vegetation, that can be done through the sensors as of today. Like I can have the satellites running over that particular region. We do have a global coverage as well. And all I do have to do is sort of run the models, right? Now I know that, and I think everyone sort of are aware that there are very peculiar belts where this particular event have been happening on regular basis. So then you again narrow down your region from all the previous knowledge that you have. You may not necessarily require time series data to solve this particular problem.
Okay.
However, in agriculture or in other use cases, we've seen that you do require time series data to understand the patterns. For example, for any of the climate models that you have, those are very heavy on historical data, that you are understanding the patterns. So every problem requires a little bit of different solution.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So again, because I read about a little bit about these prediction models and the models that you're
Right.
running, what is your choice of prediction model?
Regarding?
Say regarding what you find to be the most accurate in any given situation.
It depends, right? Like any of your time series models that you have.
Is it exponential smoothing?
Okay, now you're asking the wrong person, or I can just pretend.
Okay, no, please tell me.
No, it is. It depends on, again, like where all you are using these models, right? The prediction models. You could have, I don't know, you're trying to monitor a yield of a particular crop, or you're trying to monitor what kind of crop is it for a certain farm. So in that case, you would be monitoring the crop cycles. You would be using your time series data. You would eventually then be working out that what would be their, NDVI cycles.
Okay.
So it sort of depends as to what all it depends on what kind of a set or things that you are trying to monitor.
Okay.
And based on that, what kind of models are you applying? Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, in our, I would say in our company, it is our data scientists who are the stars and who sort of work it all out. And us product managers, we are just being told that, boss, this is the answer. Now you package it whatever way you want and deliver to the client. So yeah.
Okay, so on the client thing,
Yeah.
you said you're interacting with the clients as a
Yes.
product manager. Now, I
Yes.
would think that for someone who's done a lot of their education in the altitude and attitude of the satellite dynamics,
Yeah.
and for a very technical person as
Yeah.
one as yourself, is that a challenging task talking to clients?
Uh, I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with the education in particular. It is more about the aptitude, I would say.
Hmm.
It also comes from the fact that I come from a business family, right? Like where,
Okay.
and I mean, it is a little bit of stereotyping, but being a Gujarati, you are always sort of, taught in a very, like it just becomes an inbuilt thing in you that you would know that how to do a sort of a business or how
Hmm.
to sort of deal with a client.
Hmm.
So it was sort of engraved, and having, I would say, technical knowledge, it just became a brownie point for me to then sort of solve for a client problem. And I don't know, I think I was always inclined to sort of solve a real industry problem, then sort of work towards academics.
Hmm.
It was a very personal thing, I guess.
I mean, you've done a lot of academics for then for you to now say that okay.
Yeah, I mean, after doing all of that, maybe that was the tipping point where I decided
Hmm.
that I think I'm done with academia. I think I would actually want to use whatever I've learned in real life situation, right? Because that's where you can see how and whatever you've learned, how does it get applied. So it
Hmm.
just was quite
You're
interesting,
from
if that
you're
makes
from
sense.
Ahmedabad, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So, do you have any ambitions of becoming an astropreneur?
Astropreneur, huh? Uh, I mean, yeah, eventually, but I've not completely thought it through. At least not for another 5 years. I would
Okay.
still feel that in the career that I'm in right now, I would still want to be working for another 5 years. And maybe post that, I might just think about, I don't know, starting something of my own or see where the things lead me.
Because your industry is very close knit, as I imagine. There
It
are
is.
not a lot of people. I mean, you're talking to people from SpaceX. I mean, and it's incredible how close knit your community is. I don't think like people will. I don't. There will be a lot of competition for you if you try to.
I mean, I completely sort of agree to the fact that this is a very small industry, and I mean, this is something that I've learned from both of my sort of bosses, my
Hmm.
previous company's boss and the current company. When you are dealing with a sort of a new technology in the market, it's best if, you sort of you create a very sorry, I'm losing that word, but it's about you create a very safe sort of environment and a whole ecosystem. It's more about building an ecosystem with all the other let's just say players in the market,
Hmm.
then sort of trying to compete with them,
Yeah,
because that
exactly.
has always been much more fruitful, not just for you, for everyone else as well.
Yeah, you can use each
And
other's satellites and drones and.
absolutely. And what happens is that when you are sort of, it's more, I mean, this is something that I think I learned it from my previous employer,
Mhm.
where he said this, that Alicia, we are introducing drones to sort of a common person, right? To a layman
Yeah.
who's working in a certain enterprise, who has been given, let's just say, a certain task. If today I sort of fail with the tech that I'm providing, I
Yeah.
think I'm also closing doors for all the other tech players as well. Because, first of all, that guy is trying to build trust for this new particular technology. If one person fails, the trust for him doesn't go like the trust
Just
doesn't
for
just for this
company, it is
person.
for the entire industry.
Yes, it sort of breaks for the technology itself.
Hmm.
So, and this sort of holds true even for, let's just say, UAV companies or the satellite companies, where
Hmm.
we are trying to sort of create this, we are introducing a new technology and being a forefront in this
Yeah,
space itself.
yeah,
And we are bringing that to a common person.
yeah.
And since this technology was not accessible for a lot of people, apart from, let's just say, government or other space agencies. But then we
Hmm.
also saw that this data or this technology can also be used for the common man or for industries
Hmm.
itself.
Hmm.
So now, to build that trust, I think it's better to sort of create an ecosystem than just compete and sort of, break the trust for the technology itself.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you remember anything Mr. Bruce Cameron said to you at your time in MIT Expo?
In the MIT. I mean, we've had multiple such, I would say, interactions, but there was a lot being said.
Hmm.
Uh, it was, I would say, yeah, anything in particular that you might be
No,
looking
I'm
for?
asking. No, I'm not looking. I
Acha,
was
acha.
interested. Yeah. If there's anything
Uh,
that you could remember that has probably perhaps stayed with you.
uh, Nothing like, not anything one thing in particular, but certainly I think that whole course, it did help me to, again, it helped me to sort of break, uh, to apply the first principle, right, to any particular problem. And it
Hmm.
has been quite effective during my previous company and even with this company and even in my personal life,
Hmm.
that applying the first principle to solve a problem
Hmm.
has certainly been, you know,
Hmm.
the great learning that I sort of took it from that program.
I have a small problem for you to solve
Hmm.
for me.
Hmm.
Um, it's not every day that I meet like a professional like you to solve my small
Hmm.
problem. So
Hmm.
so basically, I have developed this system on Excel for my
Hmm.
company where it's basically a simple register where I do my sales entry,
Hmm.
and then eventually I have made it so that I've done a little Excel coding, if you can even call it coding, but I've done it so that it automatically, the register populates the ledger then populates my GST return, and then it automatically my purchase records goes into my TDS, and it maintains my stock, it maintains my cash statement. So one point of entry is basically automating the rest of the chores that otherwise I'd require an ERP or some other software to handle. So now I was thinking about your job, which is also in a way, there's a hardware aspect of it, which is like the satellite up in the sky, the eye in the sky, and the software aspect of it, which
Hmm.
you have in your control. But
Hmm.
then also, I mean, I know this is getting into a very long question, but you are dealing with AI and machine learning, which are constantly evolving technologies.
Hmm.
So, uh, drawing a parallel between my problem and yours, is there a way of, say, forward integration, or where, as the technology evolves, as you said, the legacy hardware, does it have that hardware up in the sky have the capability to get upgraded in a way where it can now perform all these can keep up to date with the upcoming technologies? Or will you at some point of time have to make changes, like go up there or make changes or bring it down or send something new up?
Hmm. It's actually a really great question. So, no, I mean, you've done your research really well.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, in any sort of line of, in the simplest word, production, you need to have your pipelines in place, right? Like right from the sourcing to the delivery, all of it has to be like the most efficient way to sort of have any production pipeline is when you sort of have control on, right from the source till how it gets delivered, etc., right? Um, if we have to also draw a parallel with the satellite industry itself, you have the sources, which are your satellite or satellite vendors, and then you have people who sort of process this particular data which comes, and then you sort of deliver it to the end consumer. A lot of company, what they do is they start off with building the satellite itself, trying to control the data. And sorry, control is a very negative word, but what I meant is that you are producing the data itself. But then
Yeah.
we've also seen that those companies are typically not sort of focused on analytics per se or delivering any kind of outputs from that, right?
Report. Yeah.
Any report or any kind of analytics which can then be further used to the end consumer. And then you also have a lot of companies which are creating analytics on top of this data and delivering to the client, but they don't own any kind of asset. I mean, this was one of the challenges that we saw at SatSure, that we sort of did not have the control on how the data was coming to us, right? We were, and we have been dependent on multiple such satellites which are already there in the market. And one of the, so to sort of have a full control on the data that gets, linked to our processing pipeline, we sort of decided that, hey, let's just have our own satellites up in the orbit. And we created our sister company called Collidio, wherein we are planning to send our own satellite up in the orbit, and sort of have the control on the data that gets downlinked for our end consumers. Because at this point, most of the Earth observation satellites, the primary, I would say, client is always a government, right?
Yeah.
So any private request for, let's say, companies like us, it always is a second priority for this satellite vendors or satellite owners themselves, right? And we've also seen that also creates a delay to our end consumers.
And I'm sure there's a bureaucracy involved and some paperwork or something.
Yes, absolutely. So, which is why we thought that, hey, let's just have our own satellites up in the orbit and then, consume that data. Now, an added thing that we've, an added layer that we've, also integrated with this is that we also want to run our AI models up in the orbit itself.
Oh.
So for any satellite, what happens is that any of the data that gets downlinked, the heavier the data is, the more difficult it is to sort of downlink, and the more power that it consumes, etc., right? So we decided that, hey, we don't need all of the data. Let's just only be very specific of what data that we want to downlink, right? And for what particular use cases. For example, for wildfire as well, we could simply just compute the imagery on board and then only send those data of, let's just say, location of where all the wildfire is getting occurred, right? Or where all it is spreading. Two things happens. One, I can save a lot on my power, on the power subsystems. And B, I can sort of get immediate response. I don't even have to wait for to run the models once the data gets downlinked, and then pre-process it and then sort of consume, and then sort of send it to people who would consume it.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of saving up a lot of time and, in literal sense, a lot of energy as well
Hmm.
to get this data down and consume it.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Okay, and so then this is currently not possible with the legacy satellites that are up in the sky right now. But with this AI technology now evolving, if you are to have with Kaleido, you're sending your, and I guess you're training a lot of people now also, folks.
Yes.
So when you're sending these new satellites up, you will have to have that forward integration set up so that in
Yes.
later on you can send upgrades also.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That sort of is given, right?
Hmm.
And this is how I think so. The market also in this particular domain is moving, wherein we do want to. The technology is also at hand right now. You do have available hardwares as well.
Hmm.
And using those hardwares, all of such processing is also possible on board,
Hmm.
which at least, let's just say, 10 years or 15 years down the line, it was not possible because it's not like the technology has not been there. The need was always there,
Hmm.
but there was not enough hardware to actually do such processing on board to
Hmm.
then sort of put it in place.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That's fascinating. That's really
Hmm.
fascinating. Okay. So I actually now wanted to point, I wanted you to point inward and tell me, how do you make sense of your thoughts? Because you're dealing with interdisciplinary concepts. There's AI, there's ML, there's IoT, there's finance, there's urban planning, there's the fluid dynamics of, I don't know, so many things are happening in your
Yeah.
brain. How, on a day to day basis, how do you make sense of so many thoughts?
Hmm. Um, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say that I sort of have solved it. I don't think I've sort of solved it completely, that I have very organized thoughts. I'll be quite frank about it. There are times where my thoughts are sort of all over the place. I think even there have been times in this podcast itself where there is so many things to articulate and there's so many thoughts, and I'm like, okay, what to pick? It is a skill that to be very honest, I'm trying to develop because I did realize it very recently that my thoughts are all over the place. But again, I mean, I would still go back to the first principle of problem solving, that you sort of categorize and prioritize on the thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Of what needs to be addressed and how it needs to be addressed. Uh, it is a very, I think so, mental exercise that needs to be done, and it certainly doesn't come over a period of time. But one thing for any, let's just say, presentation, where I know that what I'm supposed to talk or how am I what I could even expect, or what kind of questions I could expect. One thing that has helped me is to sort of write down. Like I legit sort of make those bullet points, and I do have the sequencing which is done correctly,
Mhm.
uh, something which is just done in a yeah,
So
on
when
a
you write
note and
down these
pencil.
things, when you write down, are you making a conscious effort to write down in a systematic way, or are you just
No, it is in a very systematic way, because what happens is that I do have some 20 thoughts which are just coming to my brain. But if when I sort of write it down, I'm able to structure them also properly.
Mhm.
And even if it is not structured, when I sort of read it through, of course, I can always make those scratches, change the order, etc. But yeah, I mean, writing down has always helped me out more than
So do
sort of,
you carry like a diary
yeah.
or a journal with you?
No, no. It is more even about typing
Oh,
it through
acha.
in my notes. Yeah,
Oh, like on your phone.
on my phone, on my laptop during meetings, I'll have my notes open where I'm just
Hmm.
typing it out. But anything which is written or typed out
Hmm.
helps me to organize my thoughts, is what I've eventually learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
How about you?
So
How do you do that?
thanks for asking. I used to just like raw dog through the entire thought. Like I would never write down any thought. I would never try to make sense of it. I just go through the situation raw. Like never ever care about anything else in the world.
Mm,
Recently, I have started writing, and now I just find it very cumbersome to write. But I have to for this podcast or for the other
mm,
things that I'm doing. So I find it absolutely like I find it hell to type down anything. It gives me a lot of anxiety. But
mm,
when I go through that process, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I found something. But
mm,
then I write, and also I don't write sensibly. I
mm,
I don't. I just write whatever. And I'm left-handed, and my handwriting looks like a child's handwriting.
mm,
So whenever I write down, I take time to decipher what I've written. Sometimes even I don't understand
mm,
my handwriting.
mm, mm.
So it's that. But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm asking people.
So, like when you say that you raw dog it through the situation, have you ever faced that, you so much things would be going on that sometimes it is very difficult to comprehend. So you would be not finishing the whole sentence. You would just be like finishing
Yeah.
or being in the half sentence because you yourself are trying to catch up with your own thoughts, let
Yeah, yeah,
alone giving
absolutely,
it out.
absolutely. I'm getting overwhelmed. My brain is overwhelming me. This is I've been complaining this to Akanksha every night, which is these thoughts don't stop. What do I do? So
Mm,
it's really
mm,
it has affected my sleep. It has affected a lot of things. But yeah, I
right.
think I need to get checked. But yeah, this is actually
You're
a
fine.
big yeah. No, thank you. So yeah, we had a therapist on this podcast as well, and I
Okay.
asked her these questions. So
Right.
I'm getting through it now.
Yeah.
Okay, but now coming back to you.
Mm.
Is there like is there no archery scene in Bangalore?
Archery scene is not there, but there was a phase of mine where I went for rifle shooting,
Okay.
and currently I'm having a phase of kickboxing.
Oh, so
Yeah.
that's what your gym time is.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
So there is a proper gym, and then there's also a
Kickboxing.
kickboxing.
Acha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. Okay. Um.
I think
Okay.
kickboxing has helped me to sort of also channelize my thoughts. I don't know. I mean, for me, it has always been that one thing that I do which sort of challenges me, and any kind of those physical activities. It's just very, I don't know. It is very liberating. It just feels good after the whole
Are
process.
you like when you're kickboxing? Are you like working through your issues? Like when you're raining down punches, are you thinking about like all the things
Actually
going wrong with?
not. Actually not. I mean, that was the same with archery, shooting, and kickboxing.
Hmm.
For those, let's just say split second, my brain just goes numb. I'm legit not able to think anything. So people
Which
say
is
that,
a
hey,
respite, I guess.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people go for meditation, but I don't think meditation has ever worked for me because I cannot stop my brain. For me to stop brain is, let's just say if I'm aiming at something or if I'm throwing that punch, for those, let's just say half an hour or a split of a minute, I'm not thinking anything. And it is so beautiful. I
So
don't know how to explain
you
it.
need to push yourself into a flight or fight situation for that brain to trigger into a stop. If you
I
will
guess
try,
so.
if you try to will a stoppage in your brain through meditation, it may not happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if you leave me alone to meditate, I'll actually like overthink. Like I'll come out
Absolutely.
stressed out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Vipassana is going to work for me. I don't think meditation is going to work for me. Because I think if I don't speak, like I stay by myself. So there are days when, I mean, I would just be, not meeting any friends or whatever.
Hmm.
I think I think a lot at that point. So, I mean, if I am not talking or if I'm not, I don't know,
Hmm.
I mean, if I'm meditating, I think I'll be thinking way more, like how you said.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
Yeah, it's
universal
just not
problem, I
you.
guess. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard Mr. Basu talk about the power of. I mean, I don't think he said it that explicitly, but he with the power of jugaad basically
Hmm.
in product testing, and he was talking about how there was a payload to be tested in, I think, the UK, and they couldn't
Hmm.
find their hands on a good
Hmm.
custom
Hmm.
lens. I don't know if you were involved at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is the power of jugaad? I mean, this is a very Indian concept.
It
Do
is
you
a
use
very
that?
Indian concept. Of course we do. All of us do, right? Like, if you have an easier way to solve for a certain, let's just say, thing, you
Hmm.
would rather do that. I mean, come on, this industry started with a jugaad. You had a payload which was actually being driven to Sri Harikota on a cycle,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like that was the jugaad that we did. I
you're talking
mean,
about the Vikram Sarabhai.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow. Hmm.
So, I mean, it is, we call it jugaad in a very, I would say, negative connotation. But it is all about, I mean, to put a positive spin, it is a very innovative way as to how you solve a problem
Yeah,
with whatever is accessible to you. Whatever resources that you have at your length, if you are able to solve for a certain problem, which in this case was to test our payload, we'd
hmm.
rather do that. Like, why sort of go by the books of, hey, you have to launch a payload in the satellite and only then you can sort of test
Yeah,
it. If
yeah.
there is an alternate way to it, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Fair.
So, I mean, I don't know whether it is a very Western concept or like, I don't want to sort of label it that way, but uh, we, I don't know, a lot of time, maybe it is the academia that we are always brought up with thinking in a certain pattern or in a certain structure. And if you are
Yeah.
thinking anything beyond that, it is a very quick fix that you do, and it is not taken it in a very right way.
Hmm.
But I mean, in industry, if anything can be sort of solved in a hacky way, in a, what we call it, a jugadu way, it is getting solved at the end of the day. How
Yeah.
it is getting solved, I mean, at the end of the day, no one sort of
Who's to judge? Yeah.
cares, right? Who's to
Yeah.
judge, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So do you think that's okay? So let me rephrase that question. How do you practice creativity in your job, or which is the most creative part of your job?
Hmm. I think I still feel that problem solving in itself is quite creative, right? You are trying to find different ways to solve a problem. That in itself is quite creative to me. Uh, you say whether it is artsy. If we have to talk about artsy, then of course the UI UX is the most artsy
Hmm.
thing. Creative to me is still problem solving.
Hmm.
Thinking out of the box, trying to sort of make sense of everything that is at your, that you can use to solve a problem in the most innovative way, in the most effective way, is to me, it is being creative.
What do you think your most innovative solution for a problem has been in your career?
Mm, You're
Is it with
asking
the
me
race?
difficult questions.
Is it with the race cars? The gear shifter?
Mm, the most creative way to solve a problem. I think I think we sort of had we were stuck at one particular problem of understanding from satellite imagery what a certain feature was. I cannot go in very specific details, to be very honest.
Okay.
But we had to classify as to what kind of feature it is. Now,
Okay.
using any sort of satellite imagery, or may that be a drone imagery, you cannot, it is very difficult to identify. uh, you can identify, for example, if I have to say that, I don't know, if a certain, and this is actually not the same example, but to give a certain context, you can identify that, acha, on this ground there is a building, right? But what kind of building it is very difficult to say from just from an image. I mean, the way that we sort of say it out loud is that if you yourself are able to distinguish between, let's just say, two things visually, the same can be done by the models. But if, even if for you, if it is quite difficult, then to train a model is also equally difficult, right?
Yeah.
So we had such a problem wherein we had to identify that, acha, what kind of feature it is. You have a feature that you know that it is, I don't know, a building, a lake, a road, whatever. So those are
Okay.
the general, I would say,
Categories.
feature.
Hmm.
The categories. Now, the subcategory was something that we had to solve for. So
Like, is it a school building, or is it a hospital, or is it a commercial?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
But this was certainly this was not the building, it was a different category altogether. And I think the way that I eventually solved it was by understanding the pattern and understanding the, I would say, location information. And then we worked out as to what kind of subcategory it is. And it
So
was
was
a
it like a
very,
bit of an educated guess?
it was a bit of educated guess. It was also by looking at ki, acha, what are the industry standards, and based on those industry standards, what could this be? That was only one good part, that it was not very a random feature. Those features are very distinct, and certain rules are also associated with it. But to sort of make sense as to what subcategory it is, we had to take a little bit of guesstimate, a little bit of work around, and eventually it did turn out right. And then we sort of also implemented in our models as well that this is the way that you could actually solve for it. Maybe you don't always need a training data. So yeah, I think that was in a way creative to me. I'm not
It
able
is.
to sort of think it through otherwise. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So I don't have a lot of questions left that I had written down. Although I don't write questions, I just write topics. But there was a thought experiment, maybe, that I wanted to propose to you, which was, say I give you the keys. Say Elon Musk comes over and gives you the key to SpaceX and says, "This is yours now." What is the direction you take the company forward, or where in the entire expanse of universe would you like to explore?
Very interesting question. I've not thought about this. Wow. So SpaceX has been a company which sort of helps us to go to the orbit, right? I would actually want to go even beyond just staying in the orbit. I would want to have those tech wherein I can actually go to different planets. I mean, as I would say, like any of the any kid's dream, which has been in this particular industry, to sort of see civilization on different planets. I mean, as I would say, crazy that it sounds, but I would want to see that. I would want SpaceX to sort of pursue it with all the sort of luxuries and all the resources that they have at hand. Why not? I mean, why just limit ourselves to the orbit? And of course, I mean, if there was one problem that they could have solved, they can solve, and if I do get chance to solve for that, would be the space junk. There's so much of it. If there is a way to actually clear that junk, it would be sort of a noble cause for a lot of other countries as well. And as a space industry, as a global space industry itself.
I guess space junk is a concept that was introduced to us through the film Gravity. Uh,
Yes.
and space junk, I assume, will impact the smaller satellites more than the bigger ones.
I mean, yes and no, both. Yes, I mean, it does affect a smaller satellite because A, the impact could be quite huge.
Just the
Uh,
probability wise,
the
I mean.
probability wise. Uh, I mean, anything, even the tiniest of, let's just say, a screw, which is just
Hmm.
orbiting around the Earth, it could just hit up anything and everything. It could just damage any of your communication satellite.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's it is quite
Hmm.
it is quite serious. And the other thing is that I think so, from the ground, we can monitor the bigger junks. However, those tiny junks, which are quite critical, we are not able to identify them because they are so tiny in size that
Yeah.
you cannot identify on the
Hmm.
normal radars.
Right.
So
Right.
those are actually quite serious.
Hmm. Okay.
And
My. Sorry. Please continue.
no, I was just saying that when actually Gravity came in the theaters, at that point, I think I was in University of Glasgow, and I did have a lot of my colleagues who were trying to solve for it.
Hmm.
And it, like some bit, they were completely, it was quite relatable. But
Hmm.
I think when she actually returns back into the orbit and lands, I mean, that was
Unrealistic.
very unrealistic.
So, on that
Very.
topic, my last question to you was, which is your favorite sci-fi piece of literature and why?
Mm, I would still say Star Wars.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
Star Wars, and I think up to a certain extent Top Gun. I don't know. Maybe I think Top
Hmm.
Gun was the movie why I sort of
And Top Gun
st
is not necessarily sci-fi though, but
I mean,
I
it is
mean,
not sci-fi, but it is one of those movies which sort of which made me fall in love with the jet engines itself.
okay.
It was the movie I think that changed
Hmm.
my whole perspective.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
but sci-fi, it has to be Star Wars.
Hmm. Oh, wow. That's a very
Yeah,
interesting answer.
it it is. I think it. Yeah, that was not even. It
Hmm.
was a no-brainer question for me.
Oh,
Uh, yeah.
that's awesome. Okay,
Hmm.
okay, Alisha, thank you so much for your time. I think I've adequately wasted over an hour of your time.
No, no,
So,
it's absolutely fine.
thank you so much for doing this. And if there is anything I can improve about this entire process, and if you have any feedback right now, please let me know right now. I'll do everything I can to make things better. Um, yeah, I mean, just tell me upfront if how
No,
was your
no.
experience?
The experience was quite good. I really liked the question, and I think you also sort of made me think about a lot of things
Hmm.
for which I had not thought about it. So that was quite interesting, and I love the fact that you did your research really well,
Thank you.
uh, which is quite impressive. And yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alisha. Thank you for doing this.
thank you so much.
If you learned something new from this episode of the Horsemouth podcast, do rate and review us on Spotify, Instagram, X, or wherever people engage with you the most.